I'd like to start by asking everyone to take a moment and think about a time when someone you knew and loved died and you felt powerless, adequately expressing your feelings in a meaningful way to those who are grieving. Let me take you back to May of 2020, a difficult time for everyone. Then we got the phone call that a friend of ours had passed away unexpectedly, and it was a total punch in the gut. And I was searching for a way to show my love and support to his family during this terrible time, and thought of the memorial trees that our family has planted throughout the years. So, like for example, in every house we've lived in, my mom has always planted a tree in remembrance of her father and my grandfather, and I love this tradition. So I mentioned this to my friend group, and immediately, within 30 minutes, we had $350 in my Venmo account, which was the first light bulb and indicated to me that others were also interested in contributing to something more meaningful and long-lasting than a flower arrangement. So I set out in search of sourcing this memorial tree gift. I scoured the internet and ended up spending an extensive amount of time during my own time of grief, and I just was frustrated that there wasn't something that was easy and convenient to have a tree planted in the recipient's yard. We plant party-sized trees, and this is defined as 9 to 14-foot trees in the recipient's yard. And we also have a crowdfunded campaign style option, so people can contribute as a shared gift. And this is important because crowdfunding allows for a premium price. Our price points are average around $700 to $1,000 because they include the delivery and the installation. And that's typically more than one person wants to spend. But when you crowdfund with your school community, your coworkers, your club organization, we found that a lot of people can contribute what they can. Any denomination is accepted, so even those that are on a tighter budget can feel good about giving something special. So this is an easy gift both to give and to receive. So once a crowdfunded campaign, for example, has been fully funded, we ship the recipient a care package, and that includes a yardstick to mark their spot, a booklet explaining the steps, a letter notifying them of the individuals who had donated to this gift, and a yardstick to mark their spot, and a questionnaire so we know where to plant. So the only thing that they have to do is mark the spot in their yard and tell us, fill out the questionnaire so we know. And we handle everything from there. And then also, we are a solution for cremation ashes. And I will get to that a little bit later because that's a little more complicated. So going back to the crowdfunding campaign, how do we do this? You would go to our website, so we're an e-commerce company, and you would just start a campaign by filling out a basic form about yourself and about the recipient. And we will send you back a private URL link that you can email, text, post on social media just to share with others and sort of pass the hat. As a campaign contributor, you will receive an occasional update for the campaign. So you'll get a notification when the care package goes out, when the installation gets scheduled, and then finally a picture of your tree gift after it's been planted. So you see where your money has been spent. And we found that this is a far more rewarding gift-giving experience that people tend to enjoy. And that has been proven by 35 to 40%, of our orders are from repeat customers. And you can see that they are partier-sized trees. These are not baby saplings. So these are ball and burlap trees typically, and some take heavy equipment, require heavy equipment to move in. People spend $1.8 billion annually on flowers in blue in the United States annually. And they also spend $5 billion on pet memorials and $13 billion on human memorials. So and that human memorial is defined as cremation. So the service attainable market for people who have chosen cremation and who have been returned ashes but don't necessarily have a solution for what to do with those is around 3.8 billion. So we think our service attainable market is about $50 million for flower spend, instead of flower spend, and then $100 million for pets and $350 million for people. In the memorial tree space, we found that the existing options are very unsatisfying and inadequate, which is what I found when I was searching for this gift. So you can go to 1-800-Trees and you can have a baby tree shipped. But like our friend who died in May, if a tree was shipped in, let's just say, July, I can only imagine the likelihood that tree actually getting planted and surviving. We've also found that there's a company that manages most of funeral home websites, and they have an option to plant a tree in this remote reforestation effort. And there are tons of expose articles out there indicating this is actually a scam, and that not all of these trees actually get planted, and you never actually get to see or touch the tree like the family tradition that we've enjoyed and what I'm trying to provide for others. City parks certainly have memorial tree options. You don't have the autonomy to necessarily choose what type of tree or where it gets planted. They have a master plan that they don't deviate from. And then independent nurseries. Certainly a solution, but this will be one of the 25 trees they're planting that day and won't necessarily provide the memorial experience and the reverence that the customer expects. And then, of course, flowers. So far, of the approximate of our orders, we're averaging a 20 to 40% margin, and we also have a lot of upsell opportunities by adding accessories such as garden benches, bird baths, wind chimes, and things that we know that people are wanting to create a memorial garden experience in their yard. And we're also preparing to launch offering a soil blend that's specifically designed for pre-mixing with cremation ashes. So we are scaling nationally through inbound orders, and we are developing our network of landscape partners through these inbound orders. So a little bit about our traction. We've seen over 200% increase from 2021 to 2022, and then a 400% increase from Q1 of this year to Q1 of last year. So this has all been through word of mouth and the tiny bit of terrible social media that I do. So this last year, we have been featured on Fox 2 in their morning segment, and then a few different publications. One local in Kirkwood City Lifestyle Magazine, and also featured on the news on St. Louis and me. So our go-to market strategy. So I mentioned we are an e-commerce based company, so B2C with directly to customers. But we're also creating B2B partnerships, which is what we're focusing on these next 6 to 12 months. So we have a partnership with both Boat Chapel and Neptune Society, which is a cremation service provider in Creveport. And we're also collaborating with a couple of nonprofits. My name is Elizabeth Schenk. I am the co-founder, along with my husband, Brian. So my 18-year career has been in commercial real estate as a broker. I was certainly not expecting to start a company in May or June of 2020, but here we are. And then my husband is our COO, so he's primarily the one who's out there planting the trees. We also have an advisory board, Martha Bauer, who is a local landscape designer, and then Pete from the City of Kirkwood's horticulturist. So thank you for allowing me to tell you a little bit about Treebute today. And please let me know if you have any questions. George?
Yes. You got me at the ashes concept.
Yes.
Very much. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about what it takes to have ashes that are compatible with the needs of the tree. I think that that's very beautiful. Tell me more, please.
Yes, thank you. And this is something that has been quite an education. So we have learned that cremation ashes are primarily bone that have a pH level of 11.8. Bleach is between 11 and 13 on the pH scale. So think about that. If we put these in the hole and planted a tree right on top of it, it would burn the tree roots. So they have to, the ashes have to be amended with a very acidic soil blend that happens to be manufactured locally called Let Your Love Grow. So we were connected early on with this soil provider who I think they distribute, well, the UK government mandates that their conservation burial areas use this product that we're preparing to sell. And we mandate, of course, that they premix as well. So this is a solution, and that's why, sorry if my numbers are all goofy, but in the funeral space, a significant amount of people are choosing cremation over traditional burial. It's over 50, I can say 58% right now and rising, because people view this as a more eco-friendly option, but they don't realize or necessarily have a plan for what to do with them when they come home. So, like both Chapel and Neptune Society, our B2B partners, are so excited about this because when they hand people their loved ones' ashes, they can hand a Treebute brochure explaining this is a solution, it's environmentally positive versus scattering them somewhere illegal. Or like I did with my pet, for example, I put them in my mother-in-law's flower bed and killed all her pansies. She told me to do it. She told me to put them there, but they are harmful to the environment unless they're amended with this soil blend to neutralize and allow the natural nutrients of the ash to be released. So theoretically, planting these in the tree feeds the tree and creates I agree, it's a beautiful memorial, living memorial in the recipient's heart. Yes, sir.
So it sounds like this is a very hands-off approach for the families. They're not involved in the digging and the planting of the trees. However, for a memorial, it can be a very emotional, they just lost somebody. So are you finding that your customers are okay with that hands-off approach, or how can you engage them in that process?
So for the tree itself, are you talking about for the ashes or both?
Planting,
yes. So, and it's a mixed bag. Some people are like, I'm gonna be at work here, this stake has been, the spot has been staked, you have free access to the yard, the dog is put in the house, and they come back and find their tree. Some people want to participate and they will put notes in the soil or have a small prayer service, and we've accommodated all of these. So, and that's something that actually it fills our cup. We love having this avenue for people to move forward in this grief, in their grief, and just creating this beautiful remembrance of people's loved ones. Yes, sir.
I assume you have flexibility that if we lose a loved one in December, you don't have to try to go out there and plant in December.
Of course, yes, and that's an important thing. Thanks for bringing that up because we find that most people aren't ready to handle this right away. So we find that, especially if it's a sudden death, that we won't hear from the recipient for 6 months, and that's totally okay. We will be here when they are ready, and then when they're ready, they're ready. So, we've had people who've taken 1.5 years because they decided to move, and they didn't want to put a memorial tree in their other yard, in their existing yard. They wanted to save it for their new yard. So we are very accommodating. Accounting-wise, that's sort of a nightmare, but that's something we are figuring out. Yes?
From a business standpoint,
Yes.
I noticed on the competition that you said, thumbs down on, cities that have parks, because there's limitations on what they can plant. I see that actually as an opportunity. So the park itself, they have somebody who's probably got to take care of that when a request is put in. They've got to think about it, they've got to put their brain power to it. I feel like they can outsource that to you guys. They may still have limitations, but the family may say, you know what, I want it at that park, that's what I want. Have you
Yeah.
considered the
Thank
possibility?
you for bringing this up. So this tree up here is actually in Kirk Park.
Got
So, and that's one of our board members, Pete, is,
I noticed that, so, yeah.
yes, so we will accommodate. So this particular example, the recipient had just built a brand new, beautiful house in Kirkwood and had taken every square inch of the yard. So they did not have a space, but their son that they lost loved walking his dog in Kirkwood Park, and so we do collaborate with parks. It's just, that's already a program that, well, we want to focus on planting in people's yards, like the family tradition that we have done. Having something close by and tangible, and just that moment of remembering someone, then you move along with your day, but that's where we primarily fit. Yes, sir.
From a marketing perspective, you mentioned that it kind of spider webs out every time you get a client. Have you thought about how to track all of the individual crowdsourcers, all the people contributing, so that way eventually if you ever wanted to run outbound marketing, you would have a list of potential active buyers?
Exactly, and we do have that list it is captured through the campaign platform. So we have everyone who's ever contributed to a Treebute, we have their email address on file. We have not used that yet to set up our outbound marketing. That is something that we're going to be focusing on in the next 12 months.
I like that word yet.
Yes, sir.
So my wife lost her sister 5.5 years ago. So do you have any kind of marketing thoughts? I mean, I know you're dealing with people who have recently lost a loved one, but like everybody in this room has lost somebody in the last 20 years. And they're, like if I went home to my wife and said, hey, we're gonna do this thing, and we're gonna plant a tree for Judy and her sister, that would be cool. So how do you reach out to really everybody who'd be a prospect? Because everybody has had that loss. It's just not poignant, it's not right now.
We are working on customer discovery to figure out how to reach our target audience. Because you can't say that our market is everyone.
I understand that.
So through the SLU Start I-Corp, we're in that cohort right now, and I'm doing customer discovery to help me figure that out. And I probably won't capture someone who has lost a loved one 5 years ago necessarily, because the likelihood of people contributing to that campaign is lower. We found that sort of like when we lost Nate, that I was, I just had this overwhelming, want to give something and do something. And I would say that like after 3 weeks, after a month, people just sort of move on, and that window closes.
Yeah.
It is what it is. So we do have sort of a short timeline to capture people and get this created, which is why I think partnering with funeral homes, hospice centers, nursing homes, and things like that, just make people aware so that when they do lose a loved one, that they think, okay, I'm gonna set up a Treebute because I wanna redirect money from all these flower arrangements that I don't wanna bother with, or don't wanna be overwhelmed with. I wanna redirect them to a tree instead and have that link posted on my loved one's obituary site when that time comes. Yes, sir.
Did you guys build your platform yourself? Like what was that experience?
So we did not. So we use a third-party platform called Fundraiser. It's a Canadian-based company. We
You
have.
plan on building your own?
So we would love to do that one day, but it's very expensive, and we are self-funding this right now and do not have the funds for that.
So what happens if, let's say that I put on there, I lost someone recently, and I crowdsource it, and it's a $700 to $1,000 tree, and I only raise $400. What happens?
Then we ship you a $400 gift certificate with your care package. And then I guess you would pay the balance or use that towards a lesser priced accessory item that we're working on offering. But we have had that happen.
Okay, well, because I'm just thinking at the end of the day, if I lost a loved one and I got shipped a $400 gift certificate that I could add $300 to out of my own pocket, I wouldn't be necessarily the most elated person in the world.
Well, and the 700 to 1,000 is our average. Our lowest price tree is $550. So
Okay.
if it makes it any better, you only have to pay a $150 difference, but I mean, that does happen. So, yeah, we've not had the experience where people have said, okay, if we don't raise the amount, then everyone gets refunded. People are like, we want to give, and this is what we want to give to, and
Okay.
so.
A thoughtful question, the thought is, I know that on Facebook, for example, there are algorithms that catch when somebody's posting about a deceased loved one.
Okay.
And like that exists, I know that that exists, and you'll see it, like anytime your friend posts about a deceased individual, it's very likely to get a lot of hits, which means that, not to be callous here, that's a good opportunity to advertise at that point, to give you another way in. It might be worth looking into, I don't know, but.
So walk me through that again. So there's an
So
algorithm that.
I know that on Facebook,
Okay,
when you post about having just lost somebody, that the likelihood that that's going to get likes, loves, hugs, things like that is actually, so I'm pretty sure that there's an algorithm there that actually boosts those kinds of posts, which means that if you can kind of figure out that recipe, and again, I'm here, this is all hearsay type of stuff, you may be able to form a pixel on Facebook
Absolutely.
that would allow you to be able
Like
to
a
advertise.
sponsored post or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, no,
Sponsored
absolutely.
post and that. So I would just look into that. But then the question I have is, let's take your Colorado case, okay? Say somebody comes to you for a West Coast case. I'm guessing it's not going to be $1,000 for that first go, or logistically, what's involved in opening a new state, particularly if it's further away?
So logistically, I guess, depends on which market. So let's just say Santa Monica. We got an order in Santa Monica. So once it was fully funded, she was submitted a care package. Now, let's just start with, I'll get to your point in a second. So the tree offerings for a market like California are going to be very different for the tree offerings that we have posted in St. Louis. And that's something for like phase 2, phase 3 of the website. We'll have to have like a drop-down box for which state, which market, because the USDA zones they fluctuate. So a southern magnolia that's growing in Alabama would not do well in Minnesota, for example. But we would ask them what category of tree would they like. Would it be a flowering, shade, evergreen, or indoor for people who don't have an outdoor space? But then we would do our due diligence of finding landscapers. We prefer to work with family-owned, preferably who grow their own trees, and provide installation services, because we find that they care more. So there is not a national landscaping, we'll cite one as one example, but they're trying to create a national presence. They're just not quite there yet. But we prefer to work with the family owned. It's just a different experience that we would want to provide ourselves, and that's who we found successful partners with.
Seems that information could be pretty valuable if you were to gather it.
Yeah.
Just
Gathering, I think so too. Thank you.
Okay.
And there are some of the big not-for-profits like the Missouri Botanical Garden or the Sierra Club. They have initiatives where they're asking people to give them donations in their will. So what would happen there is if you can connect with those groups, that when somebody's will goes into effect, the Treebute flyer goes out in that envelope. So in that thank you envelope, and by the way. So you can either be working with them like you're working with Kirkwood about planting trees in their space, or giving people who want trees in their space but it's not available an option.
Mhm.
So yeah, organizations like, that are eco-friendly would be receptive to you. The other thing is to contact every cremation service in the city. There's a flameless one that's probably
It is, yeah, and-
absolutely on your radar there.
Mhm. Yeah. Green burial is sort of a hot topic right now.
Oh,
What was that?
Yeah, green burial, just like more environmentally friendly burial options than, the big caskets and embalming and all that, so anyway. Yes, Dr.
You're fine. So since you work with family-owned businesses or mom-and-pop kind of businesses, do you find that standardization is possible, or or is it more so you want to stay in more of a custom boutique style offering for each deal?
We find that so far that standardization is possible. So, you just sort of explain what we're doing, and most of them have planted memorial trees before. Maybe not with cremation ashes. This is a little bit of a different diversion that we would have to provide a little more education for. But, it's like once you say the word memorial tree, the person on the end of the phone gets it. They're like, oh yes, okay. So what does the family? It's like a different level of empathy that if you called a 100 number, I can't imagine you would get. So, and then we have shipped, each order also comes with a watering bag, and this is also important, I failed to mention in the presentation, but the 20-gallon watering bag that you see with our brand on it has, you fill once per week with a hose, and has tiny perforations at the bottom, so it waters directly to the root ball. Because the last thing we want is for one of our memorial trees to not survive, and so teaching the recipient how to best care for their tree and making it as easy as possible with this watering bag is very, very important. So we have found that people really want to care for their tree, and they water it every single day, and that's equally, if not more, damaging than not watering it at all. So we do a follow-up of, hey, just a reminder, fill the watering bag once per week, and then we've had a very good success rate. Yes.
So my day job is I'm a police officer, and so I deal with death a lot, and people, it always comes faster than what people realize. So one thing to the gentleman's point about kind of more your ad spend, people, what I see people doing, they literally get on Google and what is the place to send the body, send their loved one, whether it's cremation or whatever it is. So literally people are Googling every single time as soon as it happens. So Google Ads I think could be a good thing, being at the top of the list as soon as somebody asks, Google about funeral homes or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just a little.
Thank you. Thank you for that thought. Yes, sir.
Super interesting. Thank you for your presentation, and you powered through, and kudos. The pet market shocked me that it was more than 25% of the business compared to humans. That's a huge market, at least it looked like.
So the pet memorial spend is $5 billion annually. The pet market is $90 billion. That includes pet food and pet products and things like that. Is that clear?
Yes.
Okay.
And so it had me thinking about veterinarians and,
Yes.
and And funeral homes, and you had mentioned, hey, what chapel gives this brochure, and they're excited to do it when they hand the ashes. And I'm just curious about getting that business where it's a service where they can say, hey, we can do this when we cremate. We can, if you can get the order at the time the cremation is done.
So are you saying like this would be like an amenity to the vet service?
Correct.
Those services offerings?
Yes,
Great, yeah, that's a great idea.
that would be
Yeah.
very, very interesting.